Well, this is our second year of doing a virtual endowment program. It's kind of awkward doing it this way. It's so much better when I have the books spread out on tables in the Bromley room and everybody can look at the books. And hopefully next year, God willing, we'll be back to that. So we've got our fingers crossed. A big thank you to Erin for taking care of all the tech stuff, because if it wasn't for her, I don't think I'd be able to do this. So she knows how to record it and let people in and do all that kind of stuff, which I don't really do. So I just participate in these meetings. I don't run them. So okay, so a couple of things about the endowment. What I'm going to do is give you kind of an introduction of the endowment, like I do every single year, and then I'm going to talk about just some of the books. We have a lot of books that we were able to purchase this year, and so I'm just going to highlight several dozen titles and categories, and then just come in and check them out, and I think you'll enjoy what we picked this year. So the Siuslaw Public Library Endowment Fund was established in 1994. It got its start with a big donation from the Friends of the Siuslaw Public Library. And over the years, they have continued every year to contribute money to the endowment fund, as have community organizations such as Rotary, Ladies of the Elks, Oregon Pacific Bank, and a lot of individuals. The fund is administered by Western Land Community Foundation, and each year we get a small percentage of the interest that is accrued over the past year. So, and that has been growing. So this year, the library received $12,252. We divide this up with a third of it going to children. So Gail selects children's books, NYA, and 2/3 go to adults. And I select the adult books along with a lot of help from Erin, because she has a lot of knowledge on things like cookbooks, things that I'm on now. So this year for adults, we had approximately $8,200 to spend. And we also had some money left over from last year because it was such a weird year and we weren't in the building for several months. There was a big delay in ordering books. So we had a lot of money this year. So originally when I first came here in 2000 and started doing these endowment programs, we had a very small amount of money. It was like $1,200. And so we focused on books that were really special, like a reference book or a big art book. Now that we really have so much money to spend on books, we really buy across the board. Probably the only thing that we still aren't buying probably enough of through the endowment is fiction. We kind of aim for literary fiction with endowment money. We're not going to be buying James Patterson with endowment money. But there's a lot of money to spend, and so we get all kinds of books. Plus our oversized art book section is really packed, and people don't use references much, so that part of the collection is kind of decreasing, while regular checkout books are increasing. Okay. For each $600 somebody donates to the endowment fund, we place a book plate in the book for a book that's approximately $30 in value. Now, of course, books do not come in only $30 increments. I have the tendency, I'd rather over-recognize people than under-recognize people. So if I put somebody's book plate in a $20 book, I probably might find another $20 book or even a $30 book, because I'd rather recognize people than not. So what the book plates look like is that. Hopefully you can see that okay. That looks good. The book plates that are in the books, I've said this before, does not mean that the individual or the group requested that book. It's just we have hundreds of books and hundreds of book plates to put in all these different books. Okay. Let's see here. So at last count, among processed and still to be processed books, the library has purchased approximately 300 adult books. There were some books that I purchased earlier in the year and have already gone out to the shelves. I've tried to make sure that they were all on my list. I think everything is on there. I think everything is spelled well correctly, but when you're making a list of 300 books, the possibility exists that you might have some errors. It's always kind of a judgment call whether I put a book in history or whether I put a book in art, if it has to do with the history of art. So we do have it under some categories, but you might just take a look at anything that you might be interested in. So today I'm going to just highlight a few of the books, as I said. You will find a copy of the book list on our website. Aaron mentioned that. And we're going to have some hard copy available with the book display here in the library. Okay. So let me talk about some of the books. So every year, for all the time that we've been doing this, we have been purchasing Library of America books. Probably most of you are familiar with that. There's a little reflection, so I have to tip it the right direction. So the Library of America started like in the late 70s or early 80s. It was organized by various groups, Library of Congress and others, to print the classic works of American literature. There had never been any attempt to do that before. And so they have done this. Primarily, it's all authors that are deceased. Of course, when it first came out, it was Mark Twain and then Hawthorne. Since then, they've added a lot more authors. So, for example, we have a new Ursula Le Guin book, which is now under the Library of America. So it's not just what you think of as classic literature. So Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler, who wrote Kindred, Fledgling, and all kinds of other science fiction books. Kind of feminist, very interesting science fiction. She lived up in Seattle the last years of her life, passed away a few years ago. So her books are now coming out. Other authors that I know the names of, but I don't really know their works. I don't know if any of you know Jean Stafford, but her books are coming out. We also have some classic nonfiction. Edward O. Wilson, who wrote Biophilia, the Diversity of Life. He's a naturalist and scientist, and I believe he's still alive. But his what's that? Other authors like Joan Didion, we have works of theirs, and they continue to come out with books that you think they already covered them already, but a new John Updike that's got. Well, as I mentioned, we have not purchased a whole lot of fiction. It tends to be literary fiction what we do get. So this year we have things like there's a new book out by Joyce Carol Oates, who's written about 10,000 books. This is short stories that she's come out with this year. We also have things such as the late Ray Bradbury, who this is a collection. Killer Come Back to Me. He wrote crime stories. Most people just think of him as science fiction or horror or something, but he wrote crime stories, so we've got that. Other authors that you may not be familiar with would be Shirley Hazard, short story writer. This is a book of collected stories. I'll continue along in kind of a literary bent, though not fiction. We do get books of poetry. So Billy Collins, I believe he might have been the poet laureate a few years ago, I'm not sure. So he's got a new book out, as well as another very prominent poet, Siuslaw. We get other interesting books, such as Cult Writers, 50 Nonconformist Writers to Know, which is, I always like these kinds of books because I may or may not know some of these authors, but people like Italo Calvino, and there's descriptions of their works. Joan Didion, kind of enjoy those types of things. Kind of along the same line, Harold Bloom, who passed away a year or two ago. He has a book called The Bright Book of Life, Novels to Read and Reread. Over the years, I know he's gotten some criticism because he tends to be kind of the dead white European males. But it's just another aspect of literature. He talks about things such as Dostoevsky and Ulysses and Magic Mountain, he does actually have Crystal of the Gwen. So there's chapters in there about Highland and feminist authors too. So. Other books in literature, we have 100 Poems to Break Your Heart, edited by Edward Hirsch. It's a nice collection of poetry. Another book collections that we have, this is the Penguin Book of a Modern American Short Story. And good wide variety of authors in here. So everybody from Isaac Singer to Alice Walker to Tobias Wolff and Stephen King. It's really quite an interesting assortment of authors. Hopefully my book bios won't fall over. This one is a little bit different. This is kind of a really big picture book in a way. Remarkable Diaries. This is one of DK books, which are always really a lot of illustrations and great things in there. I was looking at this recently. Let's see what I can find. So things about like the Voyage of the Beagle with Charles Darwin. So I always love these kinds of books just to look at. Okay. Let's see. I think I'll mention some science. So science runs the gamut from physics and space to animals and plants. And we've got a lot of science books. So when you look at the list between science and natural science, I'm not exactly sure where we split it out, except there's so many titles in both lists, it probably makes it easier to read. You'll just find, if you're into science, you'll find a lot of things I think will interest you. So we've got Operation Moonglow, a political history of Project Apollo. This one's kind of interesting. This one is called Beyond, and it's kind of a story of Yuri Gagarin. So, we always hear about the American Apollo astronauts, but we don't hear a whole lot about Gagarin, who was really the first person out in space. And so that looks like it's going to be a really good book. Kind of in the medical vein, we've got Women in White Coats, how the first women doctors changed the world of medicine. Then moving into kind of natural history, we've got Douglas Fir, the story of the West's most remarkable tree. So kind of a small little book there. Empire of Ants. Ants are kind of interesting because this is actually what Edward O. Wilson, who we have the book through the Library of America, that's what he studied, was ants and ant behavior and ant stuff. So here's Empire of Ants. This one I think is really interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading this. I actually did the book review for the Tidings column for the Siuslaw News, which came out today, I think, hopefully. This is called The Most Remarkable Creature, The Hidden Life and Epic Journey of the world's most smartest birds of prey. And so I was interested in which bird it was. Well, it's the caracara. I don't know if you've heard of that. I think Darwin encountered them when he went to South America, but there actually have been all over. And even though technically their range only goes as far as Texas, they've been coming further north. So there was actually one spotted in Washington State not too long ago. And they're a big bird, and they really like people. They are very friendly. And so here in the book, there's a couple of pictures. So there's one here that would come to this office window so he could meet people and get a little snack. And here he is down at the bottom. So they're really big birds, but they're just fascinating. And there's another picture in here I should show you. I just love this picture. So this is somebody on the Falkland Islands. That's another place where they live. So here's this lady, and she's got a whole bunch of these great big birds sitting in there because they like to come and visit. So really interesting book. So Most Remarkable Creature. And so then that kind of led me to, there's been a couple of new National Audubon Society guidebooks that have come out, including Birds of North America. They're kind of big, so I don't know that I would be taking this out when I was birding, but I would certainly go back home and look up what I'm looking at. There is the crested caracara, which they they show us just being in Texas and southern Arizona. They don't mention the fact that it's now been spotted in Washington State and elsewhere. So, yeah, really good guidebook. And along the same line, National Audubon also has trees. So, really nice illustrations and descriptions of where you can find all kinds of great trees. And then some other kind of specific books, how zoologists organize things. It's kind of a history of the whole, how we come up with genus and species and all that kind of stuff, which is really kind of an interesting thing. So this is a historical book about how we classify creatures. Okay, let's see. Let me move on to some biography and history. It's one of the larger sections, so I'm just going to run some titles by you and kind of show you what we have. So, a new biography of Jim Bridger, the famous mountain man. There hasn't been a new one of these come out for quite a few years, so that's kind of nice to see. Couple of new books this year on Abraham Lincoln. He's always a great fascination for a lot of people, and so it's nice always to get the Lincoln books. Then we go to people like Mike Nichols, the famous producer and director, and biography of him. Ancient history, we've got Philip and Alexander, so father and son, the Macedonians, history like that. More modern history, we've got Sicily 43 by James Holland. He writes a lot of really detailed books about World War II, so this one's come up about a new book that he's written about Sicily and the invasion of Sicily in 1943. Then we have books such as Horizontal Vertigo, A City Called Mexico. I was in Mexico City many years ago, and I'd love to go back. It is a very vertical city. High up in altitude. Nuclear Folly, A History of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I remember in college there was certain studies you always read about politics and international relations that had to do with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's really been a long time since I've seen a good, just general layman's history of what happened. This is one of them. So really good book. And then finally, let me just show you. This is really a significant book, I think, for this year. This is a photographic history of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. So I won't show you all the pictures because there's some horrifying ones in here. But let's see if I can. Burnt buildings and people, refugees, basically living in tents. So very interesting book. I think you might be interested in reading that. Okay, let's see. I think then I will move on to some art books. So, you know, we have gotten tons of art books in the past. And this year, I don't know that we have as many big books of artists and their works as we have in the past. The works that we do have under the arts really include everything from painting to music to architecture to movies. So you'll find a wide range of stuff there. So one book that we do have that's kind of a big one is Alice Ravenel Huger Smith, Charleston Renaissance artist. I'm not familiar with her works, but she's got some really interesting stuff. So what I always like about artists is learning and seeing something new. So she lived in the Carolina Low Country, and really did some beautiful work. Kind of an idea of what she did. Along the line of music, we have a really nice DK book, composers, their lives and works. We have the DK book on diary, so you kind of have an idea that there's a lot of pictures, timelines and things like that. So Richard Wagner, and I'll give you all kinds of great information. So these are the kind of books I always like to just kind of browse through. Okay, here's an interesting book in the area of architecture. So you don't really think of this one. This one is called Bookstores. It does tend to focus on kind of big, famous bookstores from around the world. It does not have Powell's, I checked. It does have the Strand from New York City, which is owned by our Senator Ron Wyden's wife. She's currently getting in trouble with their union. One that I thought was really interesting is something called Baldwin's Book Barn, which is in Pennsylvania. And I just love the pictures of this. Just a real, it looks like it would be a really fun place to go and wander. But then they've got some, international bookstores, which obviously are a little bit more spiffy. Like this one is Amsterdam. I don't know. I think I like the Book Barn better. Then we have books like The Art of Ramona Quimby. And of course, Beverly Cleary just passed away this year at 100 and some years old, 103. Yeah. So this book really focuses on the art of Ramona. And so they really go through all the books and talk about the art. So really, really appropriate, not only just for great children's literature art, but because it's an Oregon author. Beverly Cleary from Yamhill. And she went to the University of Washington, which was my and Aaron's alma mater, to get her library degree. So, another artist that I wasn't really familiar with their name, but I know I've seen this guy's works before. Joe Mora. So this book is called The Life and Times of Joe Mora, Iconic Artist of the American West. And you notice these little figures, and I've seen works with that before. Some of them are kind of a little bit cartoonish, maybe. Is that too reflective? But some of the things that he's done look like posters I remember seeing in the 60s when I was a kid. Like here's a Yosemite poster. Let's see. Things like American Indians and stuff. So really interesting stuff. I'm really curious to look more at this book. It's really good. We have several books on the movie industry. This one is on Shooting Midnight Cowboy, the movie with Dustin Hoffman and then one last little book on art. This one's really fun. It's a little book. It's called Off the Walls. And what they've done is they've taken a very prominent picture, like say this one, and then people have recreated it, their own version of it, which could be their own painting of it, or it could be their own not painting, but they just are acting out the painting. This is a good thing to, I guess, to have done in the year of COVID. So they take this, and then people do this. You have the girl with a pearl earring, and then you have some alternatives. Which I just think is really fun. So let's see if I can find some other good ones. These are really cool. Edward Degas, The Star, which is the ballerina, and then you have the little whatever that is, hamster in a dress. Let's see. You have the religious one, the Madonna, and then you have the woman with the doll. So a little irreverent, maybe, but still fun. Of course, the scream, and then possibilities there. So I think that's a great book. It's a great little book to have fun. Okay. So I think the last category I'm going to talk about is maybe the most enjoyable, and I should have eaten lunch before I started talking about this, because these are the cookbooks. And unfortunately, Geraldine McMahon from the Friends isn't here. I don't think she's done these virtual programs, but she absolutely loved the cookbooks with the Endowment program in the past. And so hopefully she'll get a list. So we got a bunch of cookbooks. This one is called Wild Yeast. And I really should not have been looking at these prior to lunch. So great illustrations, great recipes. So some of these books are a little bit fancier than others. This one I really like. It's called The Kitchen Without Borders. And it is recipes and stories from refugee and immigrant chefs. And a lot of what they have in here is really, looking at the recipes, it looks like it's fairly easy to make. So this is red pepper soup, which looks really good. And I don't know how you say this one, Lee's Gras. This is Guinean rice with chicken, cabbage, and carrots. And this looks really good. Nepali pizza. Then we have the flavor equation. The science of great cooking explained in more than 100 essential recipes. This one looks a little bit more detailed than some. For a lot of these cookbooks, I really prefer others to just make the things and then share them with me rather than try and make them myself. So if anybody checks out a cookbook and wants to try a recipe, we'll all happily try these things. This is crispy carrots with garlic and mint tahini. Doesn't that look good? Black pepper chicken. Hopefully it's showing up there. Yeah, there we go. There's a lot of cookbooks coming out nowadays that have a lot of recipes, and they also have really a lot of text talking about cultures and things. This is a Greek cookbook called Sea Salt and Home. The title's kind of reminiscent of one that came out a few years ago that had to do with the Pacific Northwest. It's kind of interesting. Jamista stuffed peppers with turkey, quinoa, spinach, and mushrooms. So, that was good. Hot honey orange chicken. Wow. Another one kind of along that same line, ripe figs, recipes and stories from Turkey, Greece, and Cyprus. Stuffed roasted eggplants. Looks really good. And herb and paprika chicken. I like baked goods, but boy, these things sound really good. Everyone can bake simple recipes to master and mix. So this one's got probably less photos than some, because he really goes into the techniques of baking and how to do so successfully. I just kind of like this picture. This is rosemary caramel brownie. So, yeah. I don't know that I'd make them, but I'd like to eat them. Now, Erin can't get enough of pie books, so she got a couple of them. This one is called Pie Academy, Master the Perfect Crust and 255 Amazing Films. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Every kind of pie and possibility you can imagine. Cherry blueberry slab pie. Boy, doesn't that look good. Triple layer pumpkin chocolate. Yeah, doesn't look too bad either. Like you could make it. This one looks pretty good. Pie Camp. So I think even I could probably make the time. Irish apple tart and custard sauce. Mixed berry slump. So even beyond the traditional pies. Key lime pie with blueberry frosting. That's really fancy. So, got a lot more cookbooks. We have got a ton of science books. We've got some books about Oregon history. I guess the one other thing I could mention, I'll just have to lean over here. There's a series of books called Images of America. A few years ago, Judy Flegel contributed to this huge series by doing around Florence. Well, there's a lot of them for every single state. And we try to buy every single one that comes out about Oregon so we can put it here in the Siuslaw room in the Oregon collection. So we have got books like St. John's in the North Portland Peninsula, Manzanita, Nehalem, and Wheeler, Swedes in Oregon. There's a whole series of these that are really fun. So we do have those added too. So I guess then I'm done with my presentation. Unfortunately, not being in person, I can't just lay them out, but a lot of these books will be out on the tables here in the reference area. We'll also have a lot of these books on the new shelves. So we're just going to use both places to have the books. Next month, for our reading challenge, Erin is going to highlight endowment books, so she'll probably have even more on display in that other big table in the center. So you'll see those and pick up a book list or print one off the computer. And I guess with that, we'll turn it over if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Kevin? Oh, here's one from Patricia. Did the funds allow for purchase of genealogy books? If so, are there any new ones?
Yes. In fact, one of our largest donors had said, you know, you can buy anything you want, but she and her husband really like history, and you can buy any kind of genealogy. I didn't buy as much this year as I have in the past. There is a new one here. It's over on the shelf called Finding Early Connecticut Vital Records, the Barber Index and Beyond. So we do have that one. I don't know that I have any more this year. In years past, though, a lot of the books here on the shelves behind me are actually were purchased with endowment. So when they're available, I do purchase them. Did you hear me? Oh, okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, then I think we're going to wrap up. Like Kevin said, we'll have the books out on the tables here. Please come check some out. Don't be shy. Take a stack home. You don't have to read all of them. And we'll also have the book list available on our website, and then there will be copies of it as well in the library. Or if you're somebody who does curbside pickup, just make a note in your curbside pickup request, and we'll be happy to put a list of books in for you. And also, we are going to be highlighting endowment books in July for the reading challenge. So you can, you'll see some videos, and we'll have extra displays and things. And then also, as long as we've got you, if you haven't already signed up for summer reading, there's still time to do that too. It'll be running through July. And for adults, you get an entry slip for every book or movie or audiobook or whatever you enjoy from the library. And then Kevin's got a bunch of great prizes that you can win. Oh, yes. And coming up on July 27th at 3 o'clock, we'll be having a program where Meg Spencer, our director, is going to be talking about the Grand Circle Tour. She and her new husband just did a tour in Utah and Colorado of a bunch of the national parks there, and they've got amazing photos. He's a photographer, so come for the photography if nothing else, but she's also got some really great stories about their trip. So that'll be 3 o'clock on July 27th. It's also going to be virtual. Keep an eye on our social media and our newsletter, and we'll have information about that, or just email ref@siuslawlibrary.org, and we can give you the program information when we have that. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Vicky had a question about whether there was a list of endowment books from the children's section.
There is not that I'm aware of. Gail purchases those books. I don't believe in the past she's made a list. You know, if the next time you come in and you see Gail, you might want to ask her. Years ago, both she and I kind of did a pony show of both adult and children's books, and she's kind of bowed out of that the last few years. So I'm not sure what she's purchasing and all that kind of stuff. Check with Gail.
Well, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Like we said, this recording will be available tomorrow, and we'll have the book list for you too. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, and please come check some of these books out. We know you're going to enjoy them. So thanks and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.